The rain felt like needles against our skin. Every piece of clothing we owned was soaked through. 3 days without shelter. 3 days of sleeping wherever we could find cover under rock ledges, beneath fallen trees, curled together for warmth. My little sister, our husky Baron, and me, just trying to make it through another night. Then, Baron stopped. He was staring at something hidden beneath the roots of a giant tree. At first it looked like nothing, just a crack in the rock, a shadow where there shouldn't have been one. We squeezed through the opening, and I aimed the flashlight beam inside. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Deep inside the cave stood a house. A real wooden house, untouched, protected from the world. It sat quietly beneath a stone ceiling, wrapped in roots that had grown through cracks high above. The wood was faded, but solid. The roof was still intact, as if someone had built it here and simply disappeared. My sister stepped closer and grabbed my sleeve. "Is somebody living here?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I honestly didn't know. Outside, thunder rolled through the mountains. The sound echoed deep inside the cave like distant explosions. Standing there in the darkness, listening to the storm rage outside, I realized something. For the first time in a very long time, we were finally safe. But the question that followed was one I couldn't shake. Who built a house inside a cave, and would it save us or trap us? Baron walked toward the house. His tail wasn't tucked. He wasn't growling. Dogs know things, and for the first time in 3 days, he didn't seem afraid. The wooden porch creaked as we stepped onto it. Every footstep felt strange, like walking into a dream. The house looked old, very old, but unlike everything else we'd found out there, it wasn't falling apart. The windows were dusty, the wood was faded, and yet somehow it was still standing. Still waiting, almost like someone expected us to arrive. My sister looked back toward the cave entrance. Rainwater poured through the opening like a waterfall. The storm was getting worse. We had 2 choices. Go back outside and spend another freezing night under the rain, or open that door. I reached for the handle. For a moment I hesitated. Then I pushed. The hinges groaned. A cloud of dust drifted through the flashlight beam. And the smell that came out surprised me. Old wood, dry herbs, a faint scent of smoke from years ago. Not mold, not rot. Home. Baron stepped inside first. He sniffed the floor, walked through the room, then calmly laid down beside an old stone fireplace, like he'd already decided this place was safe. My sister looked at me. For the first time in days, I saw something different in her eyes. Not fear, hope, but as I stood there in the warmth of that strange discovery, I knew the real test hadn't started yet. The storm had driven us here. The house had taken us in. But morning would bring a different kind of question. Could we actually survive in this place? I woke up to silence. For a moment, I forgot where we were. The storm was gone. No rain, no thunder, just the faint sound of water dripping somewhere deep inside the cave. My sister was still asleep beneath an old blanket we had found in a wooden chest. Baron lay beside the fireplace, his chest slowly rising and falling. For the first time in days, all 3 of us had slept through the night. Then I remembered our biggest problem. Water. I reached for our bottle. Only a few drops remained. Not enough for 3 people, not even close. The relief I had felt the night before vanished almost instantly. A shelter could protect us from rain, but it couldn't keep us alive without water. I stepped outside onto the porch. In daylight, the cave was enormous. Thin beams of sunlight slipped through cracks high above, lighting parts of the stone walls. That's when I noticed Baron. He was standing near the far side of the cave, staring at something. His ears were raised. His tail moved slowly. "Baron?" I called. The dog looked back at me and barked once. Then he started walking. I followed him. A few seconds later, my sister joined us. The deeper we went into the cave, the cooler the air became. The smell changed too. Damp. Fresh. Alive. Then we heard it. Drip. 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 A narrow stream of water trickled from a crack in the stone wall. Not much, just a thin ribbon of clear water sliding over the rock. But to us, it looked like a river. I knelt beside it and touched the water with my fingers. Cold. Crystal clear. My sister dropped to her knees beside me. "You found it," she whispered to Baron. The husky wagged his tail proudly. For the next hour, we filled every container we had. Bottles, old jars from the house, even a rusty metal pot we found near the kitchen. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to drink, enough to cook, enough to stay. As I carried the last container back toward the house, I stopped and looked around the cave again. The house, the spring, the shelter from the storm. Yesterday, this place felt impossible. Today, it felt different. It felt like the beginning of something. But water was only the first wall. The next one was already waiting, and this time, the house couldn't help us. We had water. That was something, but it was the only thing we had. I tore through the house that afternoon, every cabinet, every shelf, every drawer. I was hoping to find a forgotten bag of flour, some dried beans, anything edible. What I found was dust. A few empty jars. An old cast-iron pan hanging beside the fireplace. Whoever lived here before us had taken almost everything. My sister sat at the kitchen table, quiet. I could hear her stomach growling. Mine wasn't much better off. The truth hit me hard. Without food, this hidden house was just a comfortable place to starve. Then Baron lifted his head. His nose twitched. He walked toward the cave entrance, and I followed. Outside, the storm had washed the forest clean. Everything smelled fresh wet earth, pine needles, moss-covered stones. We searched carefully for the next few hours. I couldn't afford mistakes. Some berries looked safe, others didn't. Some mushrooms looked edible, others looked dangerous. I wasn't going to gamble with my sister's life. Then Baron stopped beside a patch of blackberry bushes at the edge of a small clearing. The branches were heavy with fruit, dark, ripe, untouched. My sister's eyes went wide. She hadn't smiled much lately, but she smiled then. We spent nearly an hour filling every container we had brought. It wasn't a feast, but it was food. Real food. On the way back, we found something even better. A narrow stream ran through the forest below the cave. The water moved slowly over smooth stones, and beneath the surface I saw them. Fish. Not many, but enough. That evening, I came back with a simple fishing line I'd made from supplies in the house. It wasn't perfect, but survival doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. The first fish got away. The second one, too. By sunset, I was about to give up. Then the line pulled tight. A silver flash broke the surface. My heart nearly stopped. Dinner. Actual dinner. Back at the house, my sister watched me cook the fish over the fire. The smell filled the whole room. Baron sat beside us, staring so hard at the pan that it made us laugh. One fish, a handful of blackberries, clean water. To most people, it would have looked like almost nothing. To us, it felt like a banquet. But one meal doesn't last forever, and the cold was coming. The cold came every evening. The cave blocked the rain and the wind, but it couldn't stop what the stone did. As the sun went down, the walls seemed to drink the warmth right out of the air. One night, my sister woke up shivering. Baron had already pressed himself against her side, his thick fur doing what it could. I threw another log on the fire. The flames barely responded. We were almost out of wood. The next morning, I decided to fix that before it became a real crisis. Baron and I walked into the forest. The air smelled like pine and wet earth. Sunlight cut through the trees as we gathered fallen branches and dead wood. At first, I just carried what I could. But standing there, arms full, I realized something. If we were going to stay here for weeks, maybe months, we needed more than a pile of sticks. We needed a system. So I built a simple shelter beside the cave entrance, just a roof made from old boards and branches, nothing fancy. But when the next rain came, our wood stayed dry. That felt like winning. Every day after that, I added more. One stack, then another. Soon a small wall of firewood stood beside the house. My sister counted each pile like it was gold. "Do you think we'll have enough for winter?" she asked one evening. Winter. I hadn't let myself think about winter. But now I had to. Because for the first time, we weren't just trying to survive the night. We were trying to build something that lasted. That night, the fire burned stronger than ever. Orange light danced across the wooden walls. The house felt different, safer, warmer, alive. My sister sat by the fireplace reading an old book. Baron slept at her feet. Outside, the cave was dark and silent. Inside, the crackling fire filled every corner. I leaned back in my chair and just listened. Not to the storm, not to hunger, not to fear. Just the sound of a home slowly coming back to life. And for the first time since we found this place, I stopped wondering if we could survive here. I started wondering how much better we could make it. By the second week, the house didn't feel abandoned anymore, but it didn't feel like ours either. Dust covered the shelves like a second skin. Spiderwebs stretched across every corner. The windows were so grimy, the morning light barely made it through. I looked around one morning and made a decision. We had to stop acting like guests in someone else's home. We had to make this place ours. My sister took charge of the cleaning, at least that was the plan. She spent most of the morning talking to Baron while waving a broom through the air. But somehow, it worked. We opened every window we could reach. We carried broken furniture outside. We swept away layers of dust that had probably been settling for years. Little by little, sunlight started reaching parts of the house that had been dark for a very long time. The biggest change came from the front room. It had been gloomy and forgotten, but after a few days of work, it became the warmest place in the house. The fireplace glowed every evening. We repaired the chairs. The old wooden table stood proudly in the center of the room again. One afternoon, my sister called my name from near the back wall. I hurried over. Behind an old cabinet, hidden beneath a thick layer of dust, was a small wooden door. I had never noticed it before. We pulled the cabinet aside. The door opened with a loud creak. Inside was a narrow storage room. The shelves were mostly empty, but not completely. We found old tools. A hammer, a handsaw, boxes of nails, a sharpening stone, several bundles of rope. To most people, it would have looked like junk. To us, it was treasure. Those tools changed everything. We could repair loose boards now, strengthen weak walls, build shelves, improve the house instead of just living inside it. Every improvement made the place feel more alive, more personal, more ours. Even Baron seemed happier. He had claimed a permanent spot beside the fireplace and guarded it like he owned the whole house. The house was becoming ours, but there was still a mystery who built it and why. One rainy afternoon, my sister called my name from the storage room. I found her standing in front of a loose wooden board. Behind it, hidden in the shadows, was a small box covered in dust. We carried it to the table and opened it together. Inside were old photographs, a worn leather journal, and something that made us both go quiet. A small wooden figure of a husky. It looked exactly like Baron. Same ears, same posture, same calm expression. My sister placed it beside him, and for a moment it felt like they were looking at each other. That night, I started reading the journal. Page after page told the story of the man who built this house. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, he was just someone who wanted a safe place far from the noise of the world. A place where the people he loved would always have shelter. One sentence stayed with me. I still remember exactly how it felt reading it. If someone finds this house one day, I hope it protects them the way it protected us. I read it twice. Then, a third time. The room got very quiet, because suddenly, everything made sense. The careful design of the house, the spring, the fireplace, the storage room full of tools. None of it was an accident. Someone had built this place with love, not just for themselves, for whoever might need it next. I looked around the room, at my sister, asleep by the fire, at Baron curled beside her, at the house that had saved us, and for the first time, it didn't feel like we were living in a stranger's home. It felt like we were continuing someone else's kindness. The house had given us its secret, but the story wasn't over. The real question was what we would do with this second chance. Months later, the hidden house looked like a different place. The dusty windows were clear now, light poured through them. The garden near the cave entrance was thriving. Neat stacks of firewood stood beside the porch, and every room inside felt warm and alive. If someone had walked in that day, they would never have believed what the place looked like when we first found it. But the biggest change wasn't the house, it was us. My sister no longer looked frightened all the time. Her laughter filled the rooms almost every day. Baron had become the guardian of the cave, proudly patrolling the entrance as if protecting a castle. And me? For the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried about where we would sleep tomorrow. One morning, sunlight streamed through the roots above the cave and painted golden patterns across the floor. I stood on the porch and looked out toward the forest. The same forest that once felt cold and endless. The same forest where we thought we had lost everything. Yet somehow, it had led us here, to a place no map showed, a place hidden from the world. A place built by a stranger whose kindness reached far beyond his own lifetime. I still keep his journal on a shelf beside the fireplace. Sometimes I read that one sentence again. If someone finds this house one day, I hope it protects them the way it protected us. He never knew our names. He never met us. But he was right. His house protected us, and in many ways it gave us a second chance. Sometimes when life takes everything away, it leads you to something you never knew you needed. A new beginning. A safe place. A home. That house didn't just protect us from the rain and the cold. It gave us something we had stopped believing we deserved a second chance. And that second chance didn't come from the wood or the stone or the spring. It came from a stranger who built kindness into every wall. He never knew our names. He never knew we existed. But his house found us anyway, and it changed everything. If this story touched something in you, let us know in the comments. What would be the first thing you'd do if you found a hidden house like this deep inside a cave, waiting for someone to need it? Subscribe if this kind of story is your thing. There are more where this one came from.